Hey, Stewart's Chapel, Don Pierson here, and this is Friday, October the 22nd. Friday, October the 22nd. I don't really have any one particular verse. In fact, I'm going to give you a whole bunch of verses as we talk about some truths or principle about prayer today. Today, I want to talk about that which kills prayer, that which will stop your prayers in a heartbeat, that which keeps them from going anywhere other than out your mouth. And so there's a long list here in Scripture that we can find. One of the first thing that kills prayer is unbelief. Hebrews 11:6, it says that it is impossible to please God without faith, for he who comes to God must believe that he is a rewarder of those who seek him, but also believe that he is. We've looked at that verse already. So the first thing that kills prayer is unbelief. Unbelief underestimates the power of God. It underestimates the power of God. Are you living a life that underestimates the power of God? Is your prayer life one that underestimates the power of God? Not so long ago, I had an individual that I've watched with my own eyes just be changed. He's changing. God's working in his life. But all the people that have ever known him in his past, they don't believe that he's changed. Now, does he still look the same? Yeah. Does he still sound the same? Yeah. Does he still have the same name? Yeah. Is he from the same place? Yeah. But God is really working in his life. I've watched it. I've watched it as I've met with him and listened to him. I've watched the way he handles himself. He walks much closer to the earth now. He's much more gentle, much more humble. He will say to me things like, they just don't believe I've changed. In fact, they don't believe I can. And when he usually says that, he's talking about other Christians, maybe even some people that go to church with him, but they're so-called Christians, but they don't believe that God can do what they're doing in his life. They still remember the old man. They don't want to even believe that this new man is possible. You see, that type of unbelief underestimates the power of God. The first thing that kills prayer is unbelief. It underestimates the power of God. The second thing, and I got a whole bunch of scripture on this, that kills prayer is tradition. Being stuck in your tradition. Matthew 15, verses 8 through 9. 2 Timothy chapter 3, verse 5. Revelations 3, 14 through 22. Tradition can kill your prayer because you see, when you are stuck in tradition, some things you don't even pray for. And some things, when you're stuck in tradition, you keep praying for things that you should never be praying for. But because you're stuck in tradition, you keep praying for the same things. Another thing that kills your prayers is prayerlessness. This is prayer. Prayerlessness doesn't mean that you're not praying. It just means that you have prayer without prayer. Now, that's a phrase that I coined in sitting with pastors and other prayer leaders as they talked about their churches. I would hear them describing that there was nothing going, their prayers were hindered, and I quickly realized that they had prayer without prayer. Now, yeah, they always prayed before they ate. They always prayed before they preached, before they taught. They always had Wednesday night prayer. But nothing was ever happening in their midst. Nothing was ever happening because it was a ritual. It was a tradition. It was prayerlessness. It was prayer without prayer. There was really no relationship. They were going through a religious motion. Isaiah chapter 1, 1 Samuel chapter 12, and verse 23 talks about prayer without prayer. Another thing that kills prayer is wrong motives. Wrong motives or the wrong heart. James chapter 4, verse 3, Philippians 2, verse 5, Matthew 6, verse 5. James 4, verses 1 through 5 is probably the clearest example. They're warring, they're fighting against each other, and he says, you have not because you ask not. And then it says, but when you do ask, you do not have because you ask amiss. In other words, they have the wrong motives, the wrong heart. I found that to be more true than most of us. we are so determined to have what we want, is even if it's not the will of God, we continue to pray for it even when God has told us that's not what I want. Wrong motives kills prayer. Another thing that kills prayer is a broken relationship. Now, Matthew chapter 5, verse 23 through 24 is a clear one on that. But one that I use more often is 1 Peter 3:7. 1 Peter 3:7 is a verse that is given specifically to husbands that talks about how a husband's prayers are hindered. And the word hinder, the Greek word hinder, means cut off. I mean, just stopped. Like you cut an arm off or cut a branch off. Their prayers are cut off. They're hindered. They're just stopped. They don't go anywhere. And it says in 1 Peter 3:7 that prayer of that husband is cut off because of the way he is treating his wife. When a husband treats his wife with anything less than honor, then his prayers are hindered. A broken relationship with other people can hinder our prayers. Unforgiveness can prevent our prayers from being answered. Another one is pride. Isaiah 57 verse 15. Isaiah 57 verse 15. Pride. Now remember what I said about unbelief? Unbelief underestimates the power of God. Well, you know what pride does? Pride overestimates the power of self. Pride overestimates the power of self. Both unbelief and pride will kill your prayer. Pride will stop a prayer from ever being prayed. I'm going to stop there, and tomorrow we're going to pick up on these. I want to ask you something. You're probably praying. Are you seeing anything happening? Could it be that your prayers aren't being answered because you underestimate the power of God, unbelief? Could it be that you are stuck in a tradition? Could it be that you have a religious habit of prayer without prayer? Could it be that you have a wrong heart, wrong motives? Could it be that the way you treat others is killing your own prayers? Could it be your own pride kills your prayers? Love you, Stewart's Chapel. Be back tomorrow.